On this episode of Fin Too Deep, we will talk about the continued fallout of the Jaylen Waddle trade from earlier today. And does this mean that De'Von Achane could be the next Miami Dolphin on the move out of town? We're going to dive into it, get Neal's thoughts on the trade, and a whole lot more. Might as well run our intro, well, at least the current state of our intro, one last time.
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jaylen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and I'm here with Neal. We're back here for another one. Appreciate each and every one of you coming through for this episode. As you do me the favor, smash the like button. Go ahead if you're new and subscribe around these parts, as we are right at 19,000. So let's get there. We aren't too far off from that, and then let's get to 20. I got a big giveaway planned. But Neal, the Miami Dolphins earlier today went live. We had almost 1,000 people in the chat when the deal happened. Man, Jaylen Waddle has been traded to the Denver Broncos. The Miami Dolphins traded Jaylen Waddle and pick 111 for, you know what? I didn't even think we should have included 111, but that's a different conversation for a different day. They traded Jaylen Waddle and pick 111 for pick 30, which is a glorified second round pick. Let's not all start lying to ourselves right now. As well as a third round pick and a fourth round pick. So right now the Dolphins have 11, 30, 43, 75, 87, 90, and 94 in the top 100 picks. They've got 7 picks. How you feeling about the Jaylen Waddle trade, Neal?
Man, we say this quite often, but never a dull moment to be a Miami Dolphins fan, right? But you know, like I want to speak so that like I'm not being hypocritical, but like I'm not a big fan of the move, but not because I don't think trading Jaylen Waddle was the right move for where we are. Like my job, I was the guy 2 years ago that said let's trade Tyreek Hill for a first round pick when he still had value. I was ready to tear it down then, so. I think trading Waddle actually makes sense for them, unfortunately, despite him being what I view as one of our 3 best players. What I didn't like about it was I don't think the draft value in terms of the compensation is good. And before you say, oh, Neal, they got a first and a third and a fourth. Well, they didn't get a fourth. They actually moved down in the fourth. So they didn't even get fully a first and a third. And in this draft, you know, this is my draft board. I have 18 players graded as a first round pick, and 17 and 18 on that list are Monroe Freeland and Dylan Thineman, and that ends my list. Like, I don't think that pick 30 is as advantageous as some do. And what I did is I said, oh, look, let's look at trends. Let's look at history. The last 5 30-round picks, right? Maxwell Hairston from the Bills drafted a quarterback out of Kentucky, was a 0 last year. Nolan Smith, the pass rusher out of Georgia, he's okay when he's healthy. He's undersized, but he was good enough that the Dolphins were able to fetch a third-round pick for Jalen Phillips from the Eagles for him, right? George Karlaftis is a good player, but I think Chiefs fans would tell you they're a little underwhelmed with his performance. They don't think he ever lived up to the hype. Gregory Rousseau, who's probably the best of this bunch, good pass rusher, had a really good season, but, like, am I moving off Waddle for him?
You better talk about who we took the last time we had number 30.
There I go. Number 5.
That's 6 years ago, not 5. That's 6, isn't it? That's 2020.
2020. Yeah, but this is the 2026 draft, so this would be the 6th year. But it's no Igbenogany, Auburn. So, like, the last time we had this draft, we probably made the worst pick in franchise history. And then I looked at, some of the picks that we were in 3rd and 4th round. You're looking at, like, the Malachi Moores, the TJ Tampas, the Tyler Lacey's, the Jordan Stouts, the Robert Rochelle's. Yeah, you don't know a lot of those names because they didn't have a career in the NFL. So what John Eric Sullivan and the Dolphins brass do with these picks is paramount. So you can't just say they're going to fail because the old regimes did. But I'm not knocking my socks off over these draft picks right now. And if they were 2027 picks, I'd be having a totally different conversation because I think it's night and day the draft quality of players that are in this draft. So like, it's a big move. I think the Broncos, I've seen a lot of the national media and Dolphin fans get, happy for the Dolphins in the move. I just don't see it that way. I think it's a big move for the Broncos, who are a contender, and there's no way in hell we could probably get a better player than Jaylen Waddle at 11, let alone 30. And and now Malik Willis, who you just paid to come in here, I thought we were going to see a great version of Jaylen Waddle for what he could do in an offense with a quarterback that could keep plays alive and give him more time to get open down the field. And now we're never going to get to live to see that. And Jaylen Waddle, and if when you hit your 20,000 subscribers, if you need any giveaways, I got a bunch of Tua jerseys, Minkah Fitzpatrick jerseys. I got Tyreek jersey. I got a Waddle jersey. we can load everybody up, with all these old jerseys because, man, I'll tell you, man, wow, what an off season, what a cleansing. And I said as ugly as it gets, the better. Well, it got a lot uglier than I thought it was going to get. So the Dolphins are clearly in contention for being one of the worst teams in football, and it's going to really be intriguing to see what you alluded to in the timeline. Are there other players that are going to be on the move here? Because it makes all the sense in the world at this point.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk about that. First things first, Thomas Malloy, I kind of vibe with him. I'm in your boat, Thomas. I would definitely trade number 30 for a 2027 first. I would rather recycle that for the crapshoot of what if that team ends up being bad and it's a better pick? Because if you could turn that into a top 15 or a top 20 pick, even a top 25 pick in the 2027 draft, that is a win. Because, listen, here's where I'm at with 30. Okay. I think there's a couple ways you can look at it. I think this is a chance where you can go get a Maxi Hanacquire or a Blake Miller. You could go get a right tackle if you miss out on a Moe Noah in the first round at 30. That makes sense. A guy, and shout out to Dakota. Been really active in the chat lately. I appreciate you. But a guy who Neal was talking about earlier before we went live, he really likes Colton Hood at 30. That makes sense. I think Chris Johnson fits what they look for schematically and RAS-wise to a T for this defense and this team. You might be able to get him at 43. But, I think Chris Brazzell, I didn't think he was going to get to 43. I think he'll be there for 30. I think that makes a ton of sense. You look at that athletic profile, you look at the tape. I think he's going to break the narrative about the helmet scouting on Tennessee wide receivers. I really do. I think Chris Brazzell's going to be a dude for real at the next level. You know what I mean? But I think trading back from 30, you would probably see now you got to hope there isn't a run. And speaking of runs, is number 30 now the primary spot where they're realizing, okay, 11, I've been told pretty consistently, Neal, I don't know what you've heard, but I've been told pretty consistently they want an edge rusher, but the understanding is David Bailey and obviously Ruben Bain are probably not going to be there at 11. Now, we flirted with the idea of maybe they take Keldrick Falk at 11. A lot of us in the scouting community, we don't like that. You don't like that. I don't like that. I know a lot of people don't like that. You want a hot take, Neal? You ready for a hot take?
He's the pick at 30?
No, I'll get. No, well, it kind of makes sense if he's on the board, right? But, dude, Keldrick Falk is my edge 8. All right. Anyways, continuing on. I think if you're looking at guys I like in that range, I like Zion Young and Malachi Lawrence in that range. Maybe at 30, if he's there, I'm going to put this one out. You know who I really like at 30 if he's there? He's my edge 3. I love Messidor if he's on the board at 30. Sign me up for Akeem Messidor at 30. I don't care about the age. Throw that out the window. Go get me Akeem Messidor at 30 if he's on the board. I think edge, you could get ahead at 30 before the next run because you might be in a situation where, okay, Ruben Bain and David Bailey are going to go. What if a team reaches for Keldrick Falk and he goes in the middle? All right. Now it's coming down to probably Akeem Messidor, TJ Parker being the next guy off the board. And then you get into the Lawrences and the Youngs and the Yakis and then the Moores. I'm really low on Howell too, by the way, FYI. So I think you could maybe beat that edge run, Neal, at 30 if you really want to take a look at this. And Akeem Messidor, Zion Young, and Malachi Lawrence, who I know you love just like me, those are guys in that 30 to 43 range I'm down for, bro.
Yeah, man. And look, I'm not like, when I say that I don't like the talent of this draft at 30, you still make a board and you still have to have players ranked and approach it that you're filling, your needs or drafting players. So obviously pass rusher is a huge need. And I think in the best scenario that could happen to them, a guy like Ruben Bain might fall to him, but it's going to be a challenge, right? I don't care if short arms or not. But, you mentioned a lot of good edge rushers. I also think there's going to be a good corner there. And you said Colton Hood. I like Colton Hood. I think Avion Terrell could be there. And I think Brandon
he's gone.
could be there.
I think Terrell's going in the top 25, bro.
Yeah, he's a top 25 player for me.
Well, I'm hearing big rising coming out of the combine of him. I think he's gone.
Yeah, he more than likely could be. I mean, but, obviously there's going to be players to get. But I think the best way to run this
you'll
draft,
make Neil Warren if he's hanging around still?
Yeah, I think it's to try to move that back down and get more picks for the future. And I think that same could be said at 11. I think you're trying to build an army of draft picks. Now, I don't trade 11 prematurely because I think if Malinois falls, if Ruben Bain falls, if Caleb Downs is there, you have a pretty easy decision to make. But I think at pick 30, I think of a team what the hell? Ty Simpson's still on the board, and a team wants to sneak in the first round to get this 5th-year option on him. Maybe you can trade back a couple spots, pick up a pick, and move.
This is what I was told on Ty Simpson from someone coming out of the combine that was there all week. They told me, lock him in. Ty Simpson's going in the top 32. They're like, the confusing thing right now is the range because this person had heard top 8, top 15, top 25. But the one thing he had been told consistently is Ty Simpson isn't getting out of the first round. So hopefully, that would play right into our hands at 30.
Like Arizona, right? Think about Arizona. I think they're at 35. If they wanted to trade up 5 spots and throw us a third round pick in this draft, then we would have 5 thirds. Like
I think you're right. No. Okay. You know what? Give me one of your thirds and give me a first from next year.
Yeah. There you go. Sure. Arizona's third's the most valuable third in the league besides ours, right? Our first right now in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's the Cardinals versus the Jets right now as the worst 2 rosters in football.
Especially if here's the thing, because we've all seen the clips, right, of these people who talk about like, okay, what are you getting? Who are you getting? What are you trading for? Like when GMs call them, right? Like, and they're looking to trade up or whatever. The other GM on the line will usually ask them like, who are you looking for? They'll get a good grip of what. If it's a premium and they're targeting a quarterback, you ask for more. You know what I mean? Like
100%.
That's what I'm asking for. No, okay. Well, I want your 2027 first, and then I want either a third or a fourth. That's what you say. But I think that's more likely going to be on the board. My gut tells me, and you remember, let's go all the way back when everyone was telling, who was everyone saying? I forget who everyone was. Oh, was it Jerry Jeudy? I don't know. But I remember I was the one who called when I said Henry Ruggs would be the first receiver off the board in that draft. And everyone else was so sure. Was it CD or who was it in that Henry Ruggs draft? There was someone else where everyone was just so certain he was going to be the first. And I was like, no, it's going to be Henry Ruggs. And sure as SHIT, it was Henry Ruggs. I got the same gut feeling with Ty Simpson going in the top 15, bro. I think that option is going to be on the board for us at 11 because I'm telling you, it's one of the worst kept secrets that the Rams are high on Ty Simpson. And we know it's another worst kept secret that this is Stafford's last year. I'm telling you,
and they fill their cornerback needs by getting McDuffie and Watson.
Look at where the roster is. They can afford. See, here's the thing. You look at this is why the question we asked when we signed Malik, right? Can the Dolphins afford to spend that asset given in the first round in this draft or next year's draft if they believe Malik Willis is the guy and they got to fill out this roster? Can you afford to spend that high level of an asset on someone who's going to sit for a year or two? Well, the Rams are in the opposite position. They got how close to the Super Bowl. Their guys coming back. Like you said, they addressed their major need in free agency, like via obviously other means, but via trade. But my whole point is they're in that position where they can afford to spend that first round asset, Neal. You know what's a crazy thing too? If you go look up the value, the draft value the Rams have over the last 5 years, I think it's like top 5 in the NFL, and they've done that with like one first round pick.
Yeah, like Kobe Turner, Brian Young.
Isn't that crazy?
They've nailed the D line.
Isn't that crazy though? When you rank every team in terms of the value they got out of the draft over the last 5 years, they're a top 5 team, and they've had one first round pick in that span.
Right. I mean, Puka, Kyron Williams. I mean, they've nailed their picks, man. And when you hit
Puka,
value
baby,
in the late rounds, man, I'll tell you,
Neal, we need a Puka like more than ever right now, and I'm telling you, it's Bryce Lance.
Yeah, look, dude, this Waddle news is a bombshell, though. And I remember when we were having our pods and the bombshells were the other way, right? We were trading for Tyreek. We were trading for Chubb. We were getting Teron Armstead. Man, it's such a weird feeling knowing that you won't see Jaylen Waddle on the Dolphins.
No more
again.
Penguin.
No more Penguin. And look, I didn't think we saw the best version of Waddle yet. And that 1,300-yard season was amazing when McDaniel first got there in 2023. But I thought this was the year that he was going to establish himself as the true one on the team. But, I talked to you about this earlier today. I'd be lying if I didn't say that some of the knick-knack injuries that he would come out of games for, falling on the ball, I don't
But in
think,
fairness, he battled through them. He only missed, 5 games as a Dolphin?
I mean, he was always a warrior, man, and he was like that at Bama. I do think, though, that,
and he wanted it more than Tyreek. He's a better team player than Tyreek. He's a genuine good dude.
Yeah, if you use him the right way, he probably doesn't get as many of those knickknacks. You're make him more of an underneath player than a vertical player. Yeah. And I think that backfired. But I also thought it was really cool what I read today that he ran up to the facility to say his goodbyes. Waddle is man, just a
he knew it was coming, guy. When him and Sertan did that little bit, he knew it was coming.
They knew, and shame on all of us for not knowing, because that contract adjustment yesterday was very, very telling, man. The Dolphins didn't make that just because they casually did. They did that because they were deep in negotiations with the Broncos, and moving that money around probably helped them make this deal get past the finish line. And look, now we all have confirmation that this is not a quick fix. This is the dreaded rebuild that we have lacked to do all the way since 2008 when we had Bill Parcells. So it's been 18 years in coming. I love that Eric Sullivan's not building on a broken foundation, but it's going to be painful. And and the March for Art stuff, it's satire. I do think Arch Manning's the best quarterback prospect coming up in this draft class, and I think he takes a quantum leap this year. With that said, the Dolphins franchise need to get their hands on a top pick. And the best thing that can happen is Malik Willis is the guy. But I still think that no matter what happens, they're looking to rebuild this team in 2027. And I think there's going to be more moves to come between now and the draft. And it's going to be, it's sad, right? It's kind of moving out of high school where you see all your buddies and it's not going to be the same anymore. That's what it feels like to be a Dolphins fan right now.
So let me address a few things in the chat. Number one, Brez Factor says, hi guys, this is a Vikings fan here. Real question. Would the Dolphins trade to the Vikings for Jonathan Grenard and or a first or second rounder? No, we're trying to stack picks. They're not looking to trade and add picks, and especially an early day 2 or a day 1 pick. They're not. No, they're looking to acquire more off of it. Our GM said at a ticket member gathering a couple weeks ago that they wanted to turn our 8 picks into 11 or 12, and they've currently turned them into 11. They want picks. Shout out to Penn. She gifted 5 Phinside the NFL memberships. Appreciate you, Penn, for continuing to grow the Phinside fam. And then Gavin says, why are we acting like Waddle is a top 5 receiver in the game or something? Okay, well, Gavin, you know I love you, brother. You always hold me down. So this ain't coming from a place of, disrespect or, but I'm going to push back on what you said, and I'll push back on this. Since he came in the league, Jaylen Waddle has the 11th most receiving yards in the NFL amongst all wide receivers. Okay, so basically 10, right? Top 10, right? Now, what has he done that with? With Studesville and Godsey in year 1. Remember, everything was either behind the line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage, or like within 4 yards of the line of scrimmage. They didn't even know how to use the guy. Then they're out of town. Here comes waltzing in Tyreek Hill. So he has done all of this, either whether he's been misused, even to the extent of what Neal said, we didn't use him vertically enough. We used him underneath enough. That's why his body took all that. So we didn't use him properly. And then on top of that, he was always playing second fiddle. He never got a chance to be an alpha. He never got a chance to be number 1, and he still put up the 11th most receiving yards in the NFL since he came into the league. I mean, so now you got to ask yourself, okay, if he does that as a number 2, what's he going to do now? Because here's the reality. I agree with what Neal said earlier. I think Courtland Sutton is the perfect complementary piece to Jaylen Waddle, and I think Jaylen Waddle is now going to have a breakout year. Now Waddle is the speed guy. He doesn't have a bunch of guys around him that make him redundant, whether they're better like Tyreek Hill or levels under him like Malik Washington, right? And I think Sean Payton is just, we've seen what Sean Payton has done with great receiving threats, whether it's been at tight end, okay, or whether it's been at receiver.
And Bo Nix challenges vertically down the field. It's one thing that he was doing with Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin last year, right? Like with Waddle, it's a different element. And like I don't think Waddle's a top 5. I don't think he's a top 10 receiver in football. I'm saying that I don't think if it nets to be Gregory Rousseau and Jordan Stout, that it's a good value. Like that's what I'm saying. So like I don't. We could have had a top 5 receiver if we that trade for the Laramie Tunsil, all those picks when we used to get those graphics about how we fleeced the Texans. We got nothing left from it, right? We went nowhere with that, and we could have stayed pat and drafted Jamar Chase. So we could have had a top 5 receiver for sure. Everything in retrospect looks good, right? But no, I don't think he's a top 5 receiver at all. I just don't think that this trade is us fleecing the Broncos, because history shows us that this could be Noah Igbenogany at pick 30 that we're getting.
Yeah.
So it's all about what you do with the resources you have. And in a draft in 2026 that's not very, very strong, like the odds are that they more likely miss at pick 30 than they hit our home run.
Neal, I talked about this earlier. It's been 905 days since we blew out the Denver Broncos 70-20, and look where we are.
Now he's there. Look now where he is too.
And yeah,
and he missed that game. He missed that game if I recall correctly, when we won 70-20. I'm pretty sure Waddle was out.
Yeah, I don't know. Man, I don't know. It's
sad, man. My corned beef and cabbage is definitely not going to taste as good.
Honestly, I didn't even feel this way when they released Tua. I felt a little bit of a way when Minka, just because I wanted him, to get something out of coming here a second time. No move really in the last couple of years has made me feel down. Now I might crash out. There's another move they could make that might make me crash out. But yeah, this Waddle thing legitimately has me, and it goes back to Malik Willis too. I've been pretty vocal since they brought in Malik Willis. I've been pretty vocal that now help this man out. And one of the things I've said is you look around the offense, other than at the time, Waddle, Achane, Brewer, and Patrick Paul, what did he have? He didn't have anything. Now they've taken another one of those away. And, I said to you on the phone, and I said this earlier, it makes a lot more sense now of why they made the Jalen Tolbert signing. They basically told Malik, hey, here's what's happening. We're getting rid of the top option, but we'll bring in your buddy, and that'll soften the blow.
Yeah, and your job now is to make chicken salad out of chicken. You know what?
Yeah,
to prove that you're the guy here, because we're probably going to have a top 3 draft pick and be looking to draft your replacement if this year goes how it goes. So probably not the best sales pitch, but I think reason where we are, you took the bulldozer out, you knocked down the house, and all you got is a shed and a master bedroom still standing. Do you get that bulldozer and finish the job here? Like, if you're making it ugly, and there's a plethora of players they could show the door for draft picks, and they've already shown that it doesn't have to make financial sense for it to do so. They're going to have more money than they know what to do with in cap space next year after the moves that they've
what
made.
are we projected at? 140 million around there?
Oh, I think they're going to be closer to $180 million actually. Now that, because Denver did take on Waddle's all future money owed to him, which is a big relief on the Dolphins cap. And then you have obviously the post-June stuff with Tua and Chubb. And look, I don't think Austin Jackson's going to be on this team next year. There's going to be big savings there. I mean, and then we have the free agents that they talked about signing. I don't know if there's a player on this roster that's not tradable right now. And, Jordan Brooks, right? Middle of the defense. Is he a guy that they're going to attach themselves to a long contract extension with? Doesn't seem like that's their MO right now, right? Aaron Brewer did you see, we saw Tyler Linderbaum get $27 million a year. Are you going to invest 23?
You don't think he's getting that much though?
I think he's
getting
like
18-ish.
Yeah, even 18. Do you think that this regime?
The cap's going up.
Yeah, I get it, but I don't.
And in fairness, the Packers, if they have good offensive linemen, they will keep them. It's when they start getting up there in age, or they know they outperformed in their scheme to their value, then they'll kind of let them walk.
Well, and I'll save the headline. The trade that I think they have to make now is Zach Sealer. Like, he is a guy that's 30 years old. You have 3 young defensive linemen that are going to play all the snaps. You should play Biggers, Grant, and Jordan Phillips as many snaps as possible. You're not going to get a lot of salary cap relief. I think you might actually lose money by trading Zach Sealer. But if you can go fetch a 3rd-round pick for him right now, I think you have to make that move, because it's fair to the player and it's fair to the team to go get more draft compensation. And like Zach Sealer's, obviously, he's like, it's like you're playing Marco Polo and you're out of water here. Like, he's an old guy in terms of NFL years. That's a great football player that deserves to go play meaningful football somewhere rather than just be, on a team that's obviously recalibrating and rebuilding from the ground up. I think Zach Sealer is a guy that's going to have a lot of value to contenders. God, I could see him with the Steelers helmet on. I just think there's a lot of moves. Steelers have 4 third-round picks, by the way. I think there's a lot of value in moving a guy like Zach Sealer at this point. And
what do you think you would fetch for him?
A 3rd-rounder. I think you get a 3rd-rounder for Zach.
How many years is left on his deal right now?
I don't know. I'm not looking at it, but I think it's a 3rd-rounder, and and then after that, there's bigger name players.
So he's due money. He signed a 3-year, $67.75 million deal in 2025, right? Yeah. So he has the out. Yeah. So he's got 4. The out is after this season. Mm-hmm. And then he's got 3 more years of control.
Yep.
Potential out 2027 after 2 years, basically.
Yeah, and I think they're going to take the out. I think him and Austin Jackson are 2 guys that are probably on the outside looking in of this team if they are on the roster after this year. So, yeah, I mean, look, there's moves to be made, draft picks to be acquired, and I think there's a lot of a lot of wood to chop for the Dolphins front office here.
So one of the biggest names, and people are just theorizing that he is going to be the next one out, because when we were hearing the Waddle talks during the trade deadline, another name that kept popping up was De'Von Achane, and the question and the focus now shifts to him and whether he could be the next Miami Dolphin to be on the move. I think Achane, Jahmyr Gibbs, as well as Bijan Robinson are the three best running backs in football. We know the running back position is pretty much undervalued, but I've said this. I need a first and more for this guy. What do you think about Achane?
Yeah, look, I think he's the next one who's going to get paid, right? Because Bijan and Jahmyr have fifth-year options since they were first-round picks. I love De'Von Achane. I think he was the best player on the football team last year. I thought we saw shades of that ever since he's entered this league, went on the field. You know, I mean, there's been moments where he's been Chris Johnson-esque for the Dolphins, right? But today's move changes my stance on him. And today's move, I think you 150% should look to move De'Von Achane if you can get a first-round pick for him. And I'd rather go to a team. I've seen a lot of noise around Seattle. I've personally heard the Cleveland Browns were interested. If you could parlay that into a 2027 one, I'm all about playing ball there. And the Dolphins have a little bit of leverage here because they can go and say, hey, Achane, we want to extend you. What's your price? And if that price is $18 to $20 million, and they know they're not looking to pay $18 to $20 million for a running back, then they can make the move. Now, Green Bay just did pay Josh Jacobs a few years ago, so it's not like they're immune to paying a running back, right?
Yeah,
but
they value running backs in Green Bay.
I wonder if Achane is their style of back. I don't know that yet. But you only have so many opportunities to get first-round picks added to your draft arsenal. I love Achane. I just think it makes sense.
I've heard the new contract would probably have to be in like the James Cook ballpark.
Yeah, look, I'm okay with extending them, but like, if the
he's still
opportunity
young,
to get
bro.
first,
it's not like he's 27, and
yeah.
like. And I don't want just one first, dude. Like, come on, man. I'm not trading arguably the best weapon in the NFL. And
depends on the team for me. Depends on the team.
I need multiple picks, man. He's better than Jaylen Waddle, and Jaylen Waddle fetched basically a 1 1/3. I'm not counting the trade, but the swap at the 4th.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since you've seen like a high profile running back trade. Like I remember McCaffrey at Carolina, right? Like he didn't even fetch a 1. I get it. Like I think Achane's special because his receiving prowess is almost as good as his running prowess. So I get it. But I'll tell you, man, like if it's Cleveland and they say, we'll trade you pick 24 for De'Von Achane, I think I'm taking it.
Well,
and it's not easy. It's not easy at all to sit there and say that because the Dolphins are a way worse team with De'Von Achane. And maybe their dynamic on offense is that they think with Malik Willis's ability to run and the speed of him and Achane in the same backfield that they can kind of catch the league off guard and build a competitive offense. And if I am the Dolphins, to get some good news going in mojo with your fan base, like I know actually most of the fan base is happy about this Waddle trade. To get some good mojo with those that are disappointed with the Waddle trade, I'd love to see nothing more than them to say, hey, we got a 4-year extension we're announcing with De'Von Achane tomorrow, right? Get some of the, those who are upset about Waddle going out the door. But
in fairness, remember when was it Sullivan? It was Sullivan, I believe, talked about core players. He mentioned Paul, Brewer, Achane, Brooks. He didn't mention Jaylen Waddle.
Yep, I mean that's fair.
I'm saying he might have a high price tag for Achane. My whole point is that I'm not saying he's untradeable. What I'm saying is it's going to cost a serious premium.
Right. No, look, Achane's probably when they do that top 100 list, going to be a top 20 player from the 2025 season, right?
Well, you know what they're also thinking too. Imagine what his value might be next offseason if he stays healthy and he's the only weapon in this offense.
Because you can easily franchise tag him to have him under control.
Yeah,
You're gonna have,
but then think of what his value. You could franchise tag him and trade him. Think about what his value will be when he's getting the ball all the time now, because there's no one else to give the ball to. He's gonna have 2,500 all-purpose yards and freaking 20 touchdowns.
Yeah, look, I'm at a point now with the Dolphins where it's bad, and I know it's bad, and I know it's not going to be good. There's no way this team's catching the NFL by surprise. Their roster is abysmal. Like I said, it was the Jets and the Cardinals. I think the Dolphins actually have the worst roster in the league right now. And, like, they could do anything, and it wouldn't surprise me. And John Eric Sullivan, like they obviously have the ownership support to make these type of moves. Like, I do think we're going to be a better drafting team than we have been under Chris Greer. So I am excited to see what he does with these picks. But, like, yeah, man, I mean, you ripped the Band-Aid off here with this Waddle move. So anything that's next wouldn't surprise me.
Let me ask you this. I mentioned this on the show earlier, too, when we traded Waddle. What does it say about how Sullivan viewed the way our roster was constructed, too, eh?
He thinks that Chris Greer is probably the biggest dunce in the world because any player that he touched and gave extensions to are out the door. Chubb, Waddle, Ramsey, Tyreek, Tua, they're all gone. Chubb, every one of them is out the door at this point. So it's kind of crazy. It's crazy to think of where we were just a couple years ago to where we are now. But I think this purge, for lack of a better term, was way overdue, and it's going to be painful next year. But, like I just say, and it doesn't have to be Arch Manning, if this team gets their franchise quarterback that can flirt with being a top 5 on a consistent basis and elevate those around him, you don't need a Tyreek Hill and Waddle on the outside. Your quarterback can elevate that type of talent. So, to me, it's all about this whole rebuild. To me, it's finding the right quarterback. And it could be Malik Willis for all we know.
Yeah.
I have my doubts. There's a quarterback that I like, and it's not because of his last name. It's Arch Manning, and I think there's a lot of Josh Allen to him. And I think that he took a massive leap. And, for everyone that's a front runner on Fernando Mendoza, the Indiana team won because they had a top 5 defense in college football. Arch Manning in week 1 against Ohio State looked every bit the part just as much as Mendoza and made more wild throws, in my opinion. Like, I think this whole narrative that Arch Manning is elevated because of his last name is overstated. Like, the tape and improvement that we saw from week 1 till the end of the season, and he beat 3 top 10 teams along the way, too. People like to leave that part out.
Well, I've said this consistently all year. If you watch Arch Manning and you start from the Mississippi State game in October and you finish with that bowl game in Michigan, I mean, what was it, the first or second round? It was all the bowl games that happened around that Michigan-Texas bowl game. I know Mendoza played in those 2 days too as well. Arch was the most impressive quarterback that week, I thought. But I've also said this to you, like, don't just get locked in on that number 1 pick because it's going to take a boatload to get it. It'll be untradeable if you don't get it. Like, if you don't get the number 1 pick, you don't have a shot at Arch. But what if Dante Moore continues to take the developmental step we expect him to take at Oregon? What if CJ Carr balls out at Notre Dame? He's a early Heisman favorite. Darian Mensah, I expect big things from him in Miami. I've been on record. I mean, another guy who's going to be eligible that I'm really high on, Drew Messamaker from North Texas, who's now transferred to a real school. I've said this, there could be anywhere from 4 to 6 legitimate impact franchise guys taken in the first round next year if all these guys develop properly. And now that's not going to happen. All of them won't. But if all these guys develop properly, because I haven't even mentioned, what if Lenore Sellers takes the step forward we've been waiting for him to take as a passer, right? There Brandon Sorsby was sneaking into the first
Julian Sayin
here. Yeah. Julian Sayin. So, like, my thing is, yes, Arch seems like right now he's the cream of the crop, but A, this year still has to play out, and B, this is looking like a draft where you're going to have multiple shots at hitting the cream of the crop.
Well, and you name quarterbacks. There's a couple prospects like we've talked about, like Jeremiah Smith, who's the next
Yeah.
probably
Cam
gold
Coleman.
jacket. Dude, Dylan Stewart, the pass rusher from South Carolina, is going to be a guy that comes in the NFL and is getting 15 sacks a season and is winning Defensive Players of the Year. Like, there's Leonard Moore, the cornerback from Notre Dame, who's far better than Mansour Delane and Jermon McCoy, with all due respect to them. Like, that's like the draft next year is awesome. And you can even find a way where you take a Jeremiah Smith and maybe move back up at the end of the round for one of your quarterbacks too.
Well, I think the
especially
best
if Malik
tackle's
shows
coming out.
something.
I think Gooseby is the best tackle, the kid from Texas, in next year's draft, and he would have been the first tackle off the board. He probably would have been a top 3, top 4 pick this draft.
Right. I mean, look, and that the 2027 draft, we got a long way to go. It's going to be awesome. Like, it's going to be awesome. You got to make the best of this draft. And like, as much as it sucks to lose Waddle, you're here now. You have 4 third-round picks. You have your 2 first and a second. The Dolphins are loaded with draft capital. If they are a better drafting team, the rebuild doesn't have to be as painful. Like, that's the thing. You can turn it around fast when you have $200 million in cap space, maybe the number 1 overall pick in the 2027 draft, and you have an arsenal of draft picks over the next 2 years. You can turn things around really, really fast. And I think what we're seeing is that the new brass is betting on their self to develop the roster the right way. And I'll keep saying this. I thought Eric Sullivan was one of the best hires of a coach or GM in the whole offseason. I want to see Picasso paint at this point. You got the blank canvas. Go out there and make, the starry, whatever the hell that picture is. Go out there and make it now. All the excuses are off the table. You're taking the training wheels off. You're blowing this thing up. Do everything. Go all the way in. Trade everybody you want. Get the draft capital. But you have 2 years from me to see real progress and real foundational building from this front office. And if you have this team in 2028 looking like a team that can contend year after year, and that I say that that's important. We look like we could contend in 2023 under Mike McDaniel, but we never looked like a real football team ever again after that season. I want a team that we're not sitting here predicting shows and saying, are the Dolphins going to make the playoffs? It's they're making the playoffs. How far are they going to go? And that's what I want to see this team transform. I think Eric Sullivan is playing his cards to perfection, and he is going to get every opportunity that he's waited his whole life to do. Now he's just got to hit home runs on these picks.
Where do you see them taking a wide receiver now? I think they're going to go day 2.
I think day 2, and I actually don't even think they're going to probably do it till the 3rd round, because I think they believe in their self and their ability. And I just think that, man, they're going to look with those first 3 picks. I think edge, you can't ignore that secondary. That secondary is so bad. I'll be honest. I think they're going to get Caleb Downs at pick 11, man. The more and more I look at like mock drafts and see where I think he can go, I just don't think he's going to go. I honestly think that it's either him or Ruben Bain that are going to fall to us. And I think a team like the Commanders is going to take Ruben Bain, even though they invested, or the Saints. But like, I think they're going to go and get, it's going to be to me Mauanoa, Downs, or Bain at 11. I think it's one of those 3 guys. And then at pick 30, I think they're going to go corner. I think Colton Hood is a guy they're going to love. I think he makes a lot of sense. And if they go that route, and say it's Mauanoa or Downs around 1, I think like at that pick, if he's there at 43, Malachi Lawrence, circle star, run to the podium type pick. And like, let's just say they walk around with Downs, Colton Hood, or Chris Johnson, and Malachi Lawrence. You're really giving building blocks to the future of the defense. And then with those round 3 picks, I think you're going to look at guard. I think you're going to look at wide receiver. I think you can look at tight end, right, and try to get some offensive pieces for Malik Willis. But like, I mean, dude, the Dolphins have just became today the most intriguing team when it comes to the NFL draft in 2026. And I think the Jets had all that draft capital and were that team. But like, when the Jets have picks 2 and 16, right? They have 2 seconds, but they have nothing in the 3rd. I mean, we have 4 third-round picks. The 3rd round is probably where the strength of this draft lies, right? So I'll tell you, man, like, the damage is done. Waddle is gone. We got to move on. And the Dolphins have poised themselves to have unbelievable draft capital, and if they hit the right way, like, man, I mean, they have the foundation to build this team right, and it's something we've been asking for years. I think we all knew it was fun, and we added big name players to this roster. But I think you and I always were pretty consistent that we were worried about the trenches, and we never thought they addressed these trenches fully the right way, specifically the offensive line. That's why, as much as I think Caleb Downs is the best player of the draft, I think the best player for the Miami Dolphins is Francis Mauanoa. I think him coming in and being your day one starter, maybe at guard, kicking to the right side when you get rid of Austin Jackson, I think that could be a really strong move. But, obviously we got to see where the chips lie. There's a lot of time between now and the draft. Are the Dolphins done making moves? And I feel that the answer to that question is no. And I don't know if specifically it's Achane, but I think there are a few more moves to be made. And maybe it's adding a 5th round for players or a 4th round. Like, I just think that they're going to try to overhaul this roster completely. And now they don't have obviously it's $170 million in dead cap that's on the books for this year. But when that cap turns over next year, I mean, I don't think the way to win is go spend a lot of money in free agency. But I will say that the Dolphins will be in position to do whatever the hell they want come next season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they react with all that money too, right? Because, I mean, some of the budget moves they've been made so far were pretty impressive, but what we'll be able to do once you open up the checkbook a little bit.
Well, if you traded De'Von Achane, right, and you did get a 1, let's just say that happened, you would actually be almost set up identically to you were set up when you went through the whole 2020 and 2021 draft, except that you probably are looking at staring down the barrel of a top 3 pick in the following draft. Like we gave Chris Greer a lot of credit for getting those draft picks, and I did too, right? But the problem was, it was Austin Jackson and Noah Bignagany, right? Were some of those type of picks. Like, yeah. I will say that John Eric Sullivan has done a very good job of getting us in familiar territory. And like, if he is the drafter that we think he is because of the player development side and the evaluation side that he has, like, we are in a really good position to get this done right. And it won't be as long as people think.
Yeah. I just, man, I guess turning over this roster is going to be a little bit more painful than we expected, huh?
So. Or working in the return shop of the NFL shop that has the jersey, anyone who has jersey protection, because you're going to be having a lot of jerseys come back.
And now, let's be real. I mean, ain't no one buying a Malik Willis jersey. We don't know how long anyone's going to be here now.
It's crazy, man. It's honestly, I was floored earlier. We talked on the phone. I left a work meeting and I couldn't believe it. And I talked to you and I was absolutely floored. I still am. It makes you feel like your dog got hit crossing the street by a car and you're picking them up and looking at them and saying, "Oh no, Rusty, I didn't want this to happen to you." Like, that's what this feels like to me right now, man. Like, I will say this with all due respect to Jaylen Waddle. Like, the pleasure was mine, man. And I enjoyed every moment that you were a Dolphin. There was days you pissed me off with your body catching. But at the end of the day, man, I think you lived up to a lot of the billing, and you were not part of what was wrong with this franchise. I actually think this franchise had you in a bubble, and we kept you. We didn't, my favorite movie of all time, Shawshank Redemption, my favorite quote of all time is, "Some birds aren't meant to be caged, their feathers are far too bright." I think this is a scenario where Jaylen Waddle was caged here in Miami, and we let him fall and take a backseat to the Tyreek show. And as good as Tyreek was here for a few years, like, I think Waddle deserved his opportunity to be the Batman here, and he never got that opportunity. So, like, I'm not one of those guys that's going to wish him bad in Denver. I want to see that dude light that shit up, because we're not going to be playing for any playoff spots this year. So I'm all about Waddle, man, having a great season and a great career.
Man, I wish Jordan Tyson didn't have that injury history.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. I'll say this. I don't know. I do think the Dolphins, Like, I don't know what it is. I think they have a plan, and I don't think we know the full plan at this point. I don't think you make this move today without having some type of vision of where you're heading, and I don't know what that is, and I'm not going to pretend to know what that is. I will just say that I think John Eric Sullivan's a very smart, very calculated man, and I think that this is the foundation of better days ahead. It's just going to be painful, and it's going to hurt for a year, and and everyone's going to probably fight each other and go crazy like we've seen in all the divisiveness of all the fan base. But I mean, man, what's done is done. You got to move on, and that draft, April 26th or whatever it is, just became a lot more important for the Miami Dolphins.
I'm going to hang up my Jaylen Waddle and my Tyreek Hill jerseys right next to my Mike Wallace jersey.
I got the quote of the day from my wife because she was like, I got the text, "Are you okay?" She's like, "Neal, I just calculated that you spent over $750 in the last 2 years on Jaylen Waddle bobbleheads." What a line for my wife. But no, it's dude, he was my favorite player on the team, even above Achane. So I will say that
that's why they can draft Chris Brazell, and he can just take that number 17 over. We can just get a new nameplate put on it. There you go.
Well, look, dude, you know this. We all know this. Being a Dolphins fan is tough. We watch the best player in our franchise.
It's about to be real tough again this year, brother.
Right. No Super Bowl. Then obviously we had the year with the great defense, but Fiedler was our quarterback. I had to watch Jason Taylor in a Jets jersey, Zach Thomas in a Cowboys jersey, right?
Yeah.
Like, we get this quarterback into a Tagovailoa, and he looks like he's going to be the guy, and then it all comes crumbling down. Like, being a Dolphins fan is tough. And that's why, like, for me, man, it's not about beating each other up. Like, if we ever in our lifetime get to win a Super Bowl, man, that parade is going to be fun. Like, I am going to be like Alexander Ovechkin when the Caps won the cup, swimming in fountains. Like, just forget, like, because we have.
Yeah, but here we are.
Right.
But here we are. Once again, hitting the reset button. Once again, starting over, and once again, expecting us not to be competitive for at least 2 or 3 years.
Right. Does this one feel a little bit different to you, though? Because it does for me.
Every single one has felt different, and then the end result is always the same. So it feels different in what I mean by that's okay. Everyone feels different in the moment, and then the end result is always the same. Like even the McDaniel one, no team had really focused on building outside in, and look at how exciting we were after 2020 and 2023, and look at where we are now. Everyone feels different in its own way, and then by the end of it, we're like, oh, it's the same. It's just they found a new way to get to the same destination.
Yeah. I'm just hopeful that the change in front office is
but
what
I agree
the
with
doctor
you.
ordered.
I agree with what you said earlier because I've been saying it since we made it. John Eric Sullivan was a grand slam. It's Hafley and Hafley's staff where I have a lot of question marks, and a lot of the question marks with Hafley's staff are on the offensive side of the ball. I actually like a lot of the defensive coaches, like retaining Austin Clark, bringing in that corner coach downward. Like there was a lot of like defensive coach moves I liked. I like the receiver. Well, I like the receiving coach they added, but a lot more questions with Hafley himself and more offensive coaches than anything else. But I agree with you. I think John Eric Sullivan was one of the best signings, executive or staff signings in general by any team this year.
And I think when we all wanted John Harbaugh, wonder why he wasn't interested in Miami, a lot of those questions have been answered.
Yeah. Well, we already knew that, right? Like we'd already been told this privately that, I'd already been told that, the structure, it was Shore, Sullivan, and the coach. And look at what happened. The Giants, he wasn't signing his deal in New York until they fix the structure to where he could just go straight to the Maras, right? It would be the same thing here. You don't want to talk to Sullivan. Well, I mean, not that he doesn't want to talk to Sullivan or Shore. He ain't reporting to either one of them. He wants to go right to Ross, and rightfully so. He's earned that.
Yeah, I wonder, and it's probably way premature to think this. I wonder if Jeff Hafley is going to be an early fall guy here, and
if it doesn't go right.
If it doesn't go right, and the guy like Mike Tomlin puts his name back in the hat, and the Dolphins go all after him, and the Dolphins knew how ugly it was going to be and couldn't get a big time commitment. And I hope I'm wrong. Like I
so
hope
do
Hafley
I,
is everything,
because that's part of the Hafley's part of the plan, and the whole Sullivan on bringing him from Green Bay. And I know him, like, because then what you're suggesting is we're getting right back into the cycle we were in with Greer. Guys are getting on to second, third, fourth head coaches.
It's an interesting day to be a Dolphins fan, man, and like it's tough. And look, I will say this: it seems like the overall consensus is a lot of people are happy with the trade. So let's see what happens. Like I'm wrong just as much as I'm right.
Listen.
I don't love it. I think they could have if they did.
I think they could have got more. That's my whole deal with it. I think they could have got more, and we can start from the fact, like, I don't think there was any way we should have included that 111th pick. Why are we moving back 19? We basically traded Waddle for a first, right? And then we traded a pick swap for a third. So, I mean, why did, and I saw someone, I forget who it was, but something came out. It was like Schefter, one of those guys. Apparently, Neal, the Broncos were dead set on they had to get a pick coming back their way. And we called them today and we offered the fourth, the swap. And then they're like, that's all we wanted to hear. Really? Moving back 19 picks in the fourth round was your make or break of trading for Jaylen Waddle? Like, it just, like, I don't think we did. And it's not even just a talent and what me and you have talked about, what we believe Waddle's ceiling can be. And I've already gone over. He's hasn't got the chance to be an alpha. The contract alone. I keep talking about this. People aren't understanding the business side of this deal. That contract alone should be a conversation stopper when they want you to do a 111 for 130, because you're not finding a receiver in the NFL right now with the upside of Waddle and the quality Waddle is at that price tag. You just aren't. I believe it's what? 5 or 6 million this year, then it's 26 million next year, then it's like 30 million the year after that, then it's back down to 6 million in a void year. Like, if Waddle hit the open market right now, he's getting 30 plus million a year. So that's the whole thing is 100%. Like the contract alone, I know how friendly that is.
Well, look, at the trade deadline this year, the Jets, right? They had that field day. They got all those picks for Quentin Williams and Sauce Gardner. They failed to make one trade, and it was Garrett Wilson. And if they made that trade, even though Wilson didn't light the world on fire and was hurt a lot, they probably are getting Fernando Mendoza this April instead of Arvell Reese, right? So what I'm saying today is this the type of move that puts the Dolphins in position to secure getting the player they want in next year's draft? And I hope that they've done a move that the Jets weren't willing to in their rebuild, and that is enough to get us. Because I think this whole league it's coach quarterback combinations that win championships, and I think it's important for the Dolphins to go get the best they can next year in the draft.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, now you got to hit on the picks, and you got to put yourself in that position if that's what your goal is to get, to get that said pick and said targeted players. Because if you win one too many games, a la took yourself out of the Joe Burrow running, and if a lot of these picks turn into like whiffs and, non-starters, then we're going to look back on this and be like, it was basically all for naught. You know what I mean? So now that, they wanted to build this their own way. And in doing so, they've applied pressure to themselves. They handed out some decent money to Malik Willis, but I agree with that signing. So I'm not killing them for it. But now with the Waddle trade, and now they're not putting Willis in a position to be as successful as possible. Is he going to get a fair evaluation? The guy that they brought in, who they believe is the long-term starter potentially for this franchise, are they going to stunt his development by taking away weapons and assets from them. I mean, they wanted to rebuild it, and that's fine. But in doing so, they've just applied pressure to themselves, and it comes with the territory. And now it's going to be about how they respond to that pressure with these draft picks and this roster turnover. Because, hey, if we win a playoff game in 2 years or 3 years after they do this little rebuild, we won't say a peep. But if we're
100%.
sitting here looking for a new coach and getting ready to tear it down in 3 years, it's going to be the life as a Dolphin fan all over again. But we got to get out of here. Ladies and gentlemen, do me the favor, smash that like button. Let us know down below, is De'Von Achane going to be traded next? Is that the next big move for the Miami Dolphins? He's got money coming up and all of that. So let us know. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. Appreciate all of y'all coming through. Over 500 of you in the room. We'll catch you on the next one. Fins up all day, every day.